Get out of my kitchen, right now, before I have you removed. And someone find me a supervisor who actually speaks English." The man she was pointing at did not move immediately. He set down the tray he was carrying, one corner at a time, the way you set down something breakable. Then he looked at her, not at her shoes, not at her collar, at her face. She mistook stillness for submission. She was wrong. "Good morning, Ms. Langford. Please sit down. You might want to. What I'm about to tell you is going to take a moment to land." She sat, not because she wanted to, because her legs stopped working when she saw who was sitting at the head of the table. "I own 58% of this hotel, your office, your parking space, and as of 9 o'clock this morning, your contract." "Impossible," she said. "You're a dishwasher." "I was, just long enough to see exactly who you are." His name was Elias Pemberton Cook, 44 years old. He drove a 12-year-old Civic with a cracked rear bumper and a coffee stain on the passenger seat he had stopped trying to explain. He wore his gray uniform the same way every morning, collar buttoned to the second button, sleeves rolled once at the cuff. His shoes were clean. They were always clean. He started the morning shift at the Caldwell Grand in downtown Vancouver at 5:15. The kitchen was still dark when he arrived. He turned on the lights himself, the long fluorescent tubes buzzing once before settling into their hum. He filled the first rack of the industrial washer, set the temperature, and started the cycle. Steam rose and curled toward the ventilation hood. The smell was soap and iron and the previous night's grease. He had been doing this for 11 weeks, not because he needed the money, because his mother had done it for 19 years. Her name had been Dorothy Pemberton. She started at the Caldwell Grand the year it opened, when Elias was still in school and money came in envelopes from 2 jobs at once. She washed dishes, scrubbed pots, mopped the kitchen floor at close. She knew every chef's preference and every server's schedule. She brought homemade butter tarts on Fridays and left them in the staff room with a note that said "Help yourself" in her careful cursive. She retired quietly. No ceremony, no card on the bulletin board, no cake in the break room. She simply stopped coming in. 2 months later, she was gone. Elias sat with that for a long time after her funeral. He sat with the way she had described her job. Not with bitterness, but with a particular kind of fondness that people save for places that shaped them. She believed in the hotel the way some people believe in institutions, as something worth caring for. He had built his own company by then, Cook Pacific Holdings, supply chain logistics, cold storage, freight contracts across the country. He had started it from a spare bedroom with a spreadsheet and a second-hand laptop. He sold it 7 years ago for enough that the numbers still felt abstract when he tried to say it out loud. When the Caldwell Grand went up for sale 2 years after that, he bought it quietly through a numbered company called Ridgeline Hospitality Group and kept buying until he held 58%. He had never set foot in the building as an owner. He had never introduced himself. Instead, he applied for a dishwasher position. The kitchen supervisor who interviewed him asked if he had experience. He said yes. She asked where. He said a family operation, which was not untrue. She looked at his hands, wide, steady, the hands of someone who had actually worked, and hired him that afternoon. He told no one what he was looking for. He was looking for who they were when no one important was watching. By the 3rd week, he had a clear picture of the kitchen. The head chef, a man named Bernard Cote, ran a tight, fair operation. He knew his people's names and their dietary restrictions and which 2 prep cooks were quietly dating. He was good at his job, and he treated people the way competent people usually do, without ceremony, without cruelty. The problems lived 1 floor up. Colette Langford had been the general manager of the Caldwell Grand for 7 years. She had a corner office with a view of False Creek, a car service she billed to the hotel, and a reputation that traveled ahead of her like weather. Staff on every floor tracked her arrival time and whispered it floor to floor. Her assistants lasted 5 months on average. Longer if they were quick enough to learn her coffee order on the first day and smart enough to never contradict her in front of anyone. She was talented in the ways that show on paper. Occupancy numbers, event bookings, press coverage. The Caldwell Grand had been named one of Canada's top boutique hotels twice in the last 4 years, and her name appeared in every article. She collected recognition the way other people collect debt, always wanting more, always finding a way to make it someone else's problem when the balance came due. The people who laundered the linens and plated the canapes and refilled the salt shakers at midnight knew a different version of her. They knew which floors to avoid when her car pulled up early. They knew which requests to route around her so the thing just got done without involving anyone she might blame later. Elias heard all of it because nobody talks in front of the dishwasher. That was the thing about the back of the house. You became part of the furniture. Invisible in the good way, close enough to hear everything, far enough that no one thought to lower their voice. He heard about the banquet server who had been cut from the schedule after reporting a comment Langford made about her accent. He heard about the maintenance technician who had filed a complaint through HR about unsafe electrical work on the 4th floor and been quietly reassigned to overnight shifts 6 weeks later. He heard about the sous chef who was told her hours would improve if she stopped raising the labor concerns she kept raising. He wrote nothing down. He kept it where his mother had kept things, in his chest, where it sat until he was ready to do something about it. The hotel's annual gala fell in the 3rd week of October. The Caldwell Grand hosted it every year, a formal dinner and fundraiser in the Grand Ballroom, ostensibly in support of Vancouver youth arts programs. 250 guests, most of them from the corporate donor list Langford cultivated personally. Black tie, live music, a silent auction with items most of the staff would need 3 months' wages to bid on. Elias signed up for the event support team through the kitchen posting board. Extra hours, flat rate, one long evening. Bernard looked at the list and paused at his name, then moved on without a word. The evening arrived wrapped in October cold. Elias buttoned his service jacket in the staff staging area behind the ballroom, a narrow corridor that smelled of warming trays and pressed linen. Through the swing door he could hear the string ensemble tuning up, the particular kind of laughter that belongs to people who never worry about the bill. He carried things. That was his job that night. Water pitchers to the tables, empty platters back to the kitchen, replacement napkins to the service stations along the south wall. He moved without calling attention to himself. He knew how to do that. He had spent 11 weeks practicing it. At 8:30, Langford took the microphone. She wore a midnight blue gown and spoke about the importance of giving back to the communities that made the Caldwell Grand what it was. Her voice hit every practiced note. She talked about opportunity and access and the responsibility of those who had been given advantages to extend them to others. The room applauded at the right moments. Phones went up. Behind the service station, Elias refilled a water pitcher and listened to a woman describe a generosity he had never once seen her direct at the people who worked for her. At 9:45, the auction was running and the wine was flowing in the way it does at events like this. Not enough to be disruptive, just enough to make everyone slightly more certain of themselves than they should be. Elias was crossing the south corridor from the kitchen, with a full tray of replacement glassware when the door from the ballroom swung open suddenly from the other side. A guest in a tuxedo came through it backwards, gesturing at someone behind him, laughing at his own point. He did not see Elias. The door caught the corner of the tray at full swing. 6 glasses went to the floor. 2 of them broke. The sound cut through the hallway like a starting gun. Elias had already crouched and was gathering the pieces with the cloth from his apron pocket, his hands quick and careful. The guest looked down for half a second, said "Sorry 'bout that," without making eye contact, and pushed back through the door. It could have ended there. A broom from the utility closet, 3 minutes, and the corridor would have been clear. But the swing door opened again, and Colette Langford stepped through it. She had come looking for something, a server she had signaled, a request that hadn't arrived. She found the corridor, the broken glass, and the man crouching in the middle of it. She took in the scene slowly, the way a person does when they are deciding what story they want to tell about it. Then she called back through the ballroom door. "Excuse me, can someone come here, please?" 4 or 5 guests drifted out, drawn by the tone of her voice more than the words. She looked at Elias. She did not ask what happened. She already knew what story she wanted. "Can you explain to me," she said, "what you were doing with glassware in a service corridor during active guest service?" Elias rose to his feet. A guest swung the door into the tray, he said. "I was coming to collect the pieces before anyone was cut." The guest. She said it the way you repeat something you do not believe. "A guest caused this. He is still in the ballroom, ma'am. I can point him out." "What I see," Langford said, and her voice had found the microphone register, the one designed to carry, is a $40 glass on the floor and an explanation that requires me to go find a witness. She turned to the small audience at the door. Most of them were looking at the floor now, or at each other. One woman had her phone half raised, uncertain. "This is a 250-year-old institution," Langford said. That was not true. The hotel was 31 years old, but no one corrected her. "And this corridor is a guest-adjacent space, not," she gestured briefly at Elias, at his uniform, at the general direction of him. "This." Elias did not say anything. "Tell me your name." Not a request, the kind of instruction you give to someone you plan to file something about. "Elias Pemberton Cook, kitchen support." "Pemberton Cook," she repeated it. Interesting name for a dishwasher. He looked at her. He did not look away. "You know what? I've been letting things like this accumulate for too long." She said it to the guests, not to him. "This event represents everything the Caldwell Grand stands for, and I will not have it undermined by careless handling. You're done for the evening. Leave your jacket with the kitchen supervisor and collect your things." One of the guests shifted. A silver-haired man near the back of the group put down the drink he was holding. Elias looked at her for a moment. Then he reached into the apron pocket, not for anything threatening, not quickly, and produced a folded cloth which he used to pick up the last shard of glass from the floor. He set it on the tray, folded the cloth back, and set the tray against the wall. "Did you hear me?" Langford said. Her voice had sharpened. "I said you should be careful about what you dismiss, Ms. Langford," he said. His voice was quiet enough that the guests had to lean slightly forward. She laughed, the small, confident laugh of someone who has never been surprised by someone standing below her on an org chart. "Is that a comment?" She turned to her security liaison, a man named Curtis, who had been with the hotel for 12 years, and who had, in the past hour, watched 3 different staff members flinch at the sound of her heels on the marble. "Curtis, please help this gentleman find the exit." Curtis came forward, not unkindly. His hand on Elias's arm was firm but not rough. Elias did not resist. He walked the length of the corridor and through the service exit into the cold October evening without looking back. The night air was sharp and clean after the ballroom. His breath came out in a brief cloud. Behind him the music filtered through the wall, a little bright, a little forced. He sat on the bench beside the service entrance for a moment and looked out at the parking lot, the low city lights beyond. He called Diana Whitfield on the second ring. "Diana, it's done. Move the shareholder notice to Monday morning." A pause on her end. She was the kind of lawyer who kept a folder perpetually ready for the call she had been half expecting. "What happened?" "I got dismissed." "From the Gala." "Elias, you own the building." He looked at the bench, at the faint initials scratched into it, DP 2006. Dorothy Pemberton. His mother had sat here on breaks. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm calling. Monday morning, 8 o'clock. Emergency board session, 31st floor. Send the notice from Ridgeline. The seller's lawyers will want to know why we're moving the formal introduction up. Tell them the new principal would like to meet his team before the week is out." He heard her exhale. "All right, Monday it is." Before she hung up, she said, "There's a woman named Maya Chen who works in your hotel's HR department. She's been sitting on 11 complaints for 2 years. She tried twice to escalate them and was told to table them both times. I know about her, Elias said. Make sure she gets the meeting notice too. He sat on the bench for another few minutes after that, in the cold, one hand resting on the initials his mother had not made. He did not know who DP was. Did not matter. Someone had sat here too. Someone had taken a break in the dark and left their initials in the wood. The way people leave small proofs of existence in places they spent a portion of their lives. He went home and ironed a charcoal suit. Monday arrived the way Mondays do in Vancouver in October. Low cloud, drizzle, the city moving under a sky the color of old wool. By 7:45, the 31st floor boardroom was filling with people who had spent the weekend trying to find out who Ridgeline Hospitality Group was. Nobody had found much. A registered company, a holding address, a law firm on Granville Street. No face, no name. The board members gathered in the kind of quiet that happens when no one wants to be the one to say they are confused. The elevator opened at 7:58. Diana Whitfield came first, briefcase in hand, charcoal dress. Behind her came a man some of them half recognized, the shape of him, the steadiness of how he walked, before any name arrived. Colette Langford came at 7:59. She had spent Sunday reviewing her numbers. Occupancy up 4% year over year. Event revenue at a record. She had a retention bonus proposal in the red folder under her arm and a plan to make this shareholder meeting short. She pushed through the boardroom doors and started talking before she looked up. All right, I understand. Ridgeline wanted a formal introduction. Let's make this efficient. I have a... She stopped. The room was still. Board members sat along the table like people watching something they did not yet have language for. The chair at the head of the table was turned away from the door. A woman she had never met stood at the side of the table with a stack of documents squared in front of her. Ms. Langford, Diana Whitfield, counsel for Ridgeline Hospitality Group. Please take a seat. Langford did not take a seat. Where's the principal? I'll deal with whoever's actually running this. Diana opened the top folder without hurry. As of 9:14 Saturday morning, Ridgeline Hospitality Group completed the purchase of the remaining institutional shares in the Caldwell Grand, bringing their total stake to 58%. All filings are complete. All transfers are registered. She slid a single page down the table. With respect, Miss Langford, the person running this, has been in the building for 11 weeks. The chair at the head of the table turned. Elias Pemberton Cook was wearing the charcoal suit and his mother's wristwatch, a small thing with a worn leather strap he had never replaced. He looked the same as he had on Saturday night, except that the service jacket was gone. "Good morning, Ms. Langford," he said. "Please sit. You look like you could use a moment." The red folder slipped out from under her arm and slapped the floor. For 3 full seconds, the room held its breath. Then she laughed. That same small laugh, because her mind had nowhere else to put the information. "You! How did you get in here?" "I own the building," Elias said. "I've been in it since August. Impossible. You're a dishwasher." "I was. For 11 weeks. It was the best research I've ever done." He stood and walked the length of the table slowly. "You told the guests on Saturday evening that careless handling was undermining what this hotel stands for. I want to talk about what this hotel stands for, because I've spent 3 months learning it from the floor up, and I think we have different definitions." He set a folder on the table. Diana opened it and the screen at the end of the room lit up. There was footage from Saturday evening, not from a guest's phone, from the corridor camera, which Elias had known about since week 2, because it was the same camera his mother had once asked maintenance to angle slightly so it would stop pointing at the staff bench where people ate their lunches. The footage was quiet and clear. The guest with the tuxedo, the door swinging open, the tray catching, the glasses going down, Elias crouching to gather them, and then Langford arriving, and what followed. The board members watched it without speaking. A woman near the far end looked at her hands for part of it. The silver-haired man, Gerald Fitch, who had been on the Caldwell Grands board for 9 years, watched the entire thing with the particular stillness of someone who is recalibrating a long-held position. When the screen went dark, Langford found her voice. "That is one incident, taken in isolation." "It's not in isolation," Elias said. He nodded to Diana. Maya Chen came in from the anteroom. She was small, mid-30s, and she walked to the table like someone who had waited a long time for a room that would actually hold still for her. She set 11 files on the table, one at a time. "These are complaints filed through the hotel's internal HR process over the past 6 years," Diana said. 11 in total. 2 were escalated to senior management and returned to HR without action. The others were tabled. She read from the top file. "A banquet server removed from the schedule 9 days after reporting a comment made about her accent. A maintenance technician reassigned to overnight shifts 6 weeks after filing a safety concern about electrical work on the 4th floor. A sous chef told her hours would improve if she stopped raising labor issues." Each file, each name, each date, and each outcome. The signature on the corresponding management responses was always the same. Langford looked at the files. Then she looked at the room. 7 faces, and not one of them was looking back at her the way she was used to being looked at. "I was building a high-performance culture," she said. "In hospitality, you have to make hard decisions. You don't get those numbers without. Those numbers are mine now," Elias said, not unkindly, "along with the decisions about how they get made." She pivoted. He had expected it. People with her particular talent always reach for the personal appeal last when the professional frame has stopped working. "Elias." She said his name carefully, testing whether familiarity would open something. "I have given 7 years to this property. I have slept in this building during snowstorms and staffing crises. If I had known who you were, I would never have." She heard it. The room heard it. Gerald Fitch closed the folder in front of him and did not reopen it. Elias let the silence hold for a moment. Then he said, "That's the part I need you to sit with, Ms. Langford. You would never have behaved that way if you had known who I was. My mother worked in that kitchen for 19 years. Nobody in this building knew who she was either." He opened the folder on the table in front of him and placed a photograph at the center. A woman in a kitchen uniform, laughing at something off-camera, a pot rack behind her. Her name was Dorothy Pemberton. She believed this hotel was worth her best work. I came here to find out if she was right about the place itself, or only about the idea of it. The room was very quiet. Diana called the motion. Ridgeline Hospitality Group, as controlling shareholder, moves for the immediate termination of the general manager for cause, citing the conduct provisions of her employment agreement and the pattern of management decisions represented in these 11 files. Gerald Fitch raised his hand first, then the woman beside him, then the next, around the table one by one. Langford watched it happen. Her mouth opened once. She looked at each face and the count went on without her. Unanimous. She tried one more angle. The lawsuit angle, the years of contribution angle. Diana listened to it pleasantly and outlined what discovery would look like. The 11 files, the corridor footage, 6 years of staff termination records now fully available to the new controlling shareholder. "You're welcome to proceed," Diana said. "We'd find it clarifying." Langford did not proceed. Curtis was asked to escort her to her office to collect her personal effects. He had been with the hotel for 12 years. He did it quietly and without expression, and when she asked him once, in the elevator, whether he had known, he said, truthfully, that he had known something was going to change. He had not known what. When the elevator opened, on the lobby, the morning shift was arriving. Front desk staff, kitchen crew, the 2 housekeeping supervisors who started early on Mondays. Word had already done what Word does in a building with 11 floors and 400 years of accumulated hallway conversation. People paused. Nobody was unkind. They simply looked and let her cross the full length of the marble lobby in heels that sounded very loud against the stone. She pushed through the revolving door and into an October morning that was not waiting for her. Upstairs, the boardroom exhaled. Gerald Fitch shook Elias's hand and held it a moment. "I want to apologize," he said. "On behalf of the board, we should have looked harder at what we were getting those numbers in exchange for." Elias nodded. "That's why I didn't come in through the front door." The rest moved quickly, but not carelessly. Maya Chen's team was given full resources and a mandate to review every file from the previous 6 years. Each of the 11 people named in the complaints received a personal call, not from legal, from Elias, and each call started the same way. "The hotel owes you an accounting, and we pay our debts." 3 of them came back. One of them, the banquet server, a woman named Patricia who had moved to another property across the city, came back as the new events manager, a position she had been qualified for when she was first overlooked. The corridor footage went up publicly on Tuesday, not the full segment. Elias's communications team released the 2-minute clip that showed the incident clearly and the hotel's statement clearly. 4 sentences. Effective immediately, Colette Langford no longer represents the Caldwell Grand. The hotel apologizes without reservation to its staff, its community partners, and every person who was treated as secondary to the metrics their work produced. "We are reviewing 6 years of decisions. This review will be complete, and its findings will not be filed away." The clip was watched 800,000 times by Thursday. Canadian outlets ran it. A national morning program played the corridor footage and then played the boardroom statement and then asked on air what kind of hotel produced numbers like that and why anyone had thought not to ask. The Youth Arts fundraiser, the actual charity portion of the gala, had delivered less than 30 cents of every donated dollar to any youth arts program. The event costs, the coordination fees, the catering invoiced at above market rates, through a company in which Langford held a consulting arrangement. It was all in the books, and the books were now fully open. The foundation that had lent its name to the gala issued a statement saying it was conducting its own review. Elias's team sent them everything they asked for and then some. The hotel did not collapse. It did the opposite. Within 3 months, staff turnover, which had been quietly extraordinary for 5 years, dropped by more than half. Bernard Cote, the head chef, called Elias the week after the board meeting and said simply, "I've been here 8 years waiting for someone to care about the floor. I can stay now." He stayed. The kitchen staff received a wage adjustment that brought them in line with comparable Vancouver properties. The maintenance technician who had been pushed to nights came back to days and finished the electrical compliance work he had flagged 2 years earlier. The work needed to be done. It had always needed to be done. Maya Chen, who had spent 2 years sitting on files she had not been permitted to act on, was asked to design the new HR framework herself. She worked on it for 6 weeks and presented it to the board on a Wednesday morning. It had teeth. The board approved it without a single amendment. The bench beside the service exit was still there. Elias asked facilities not to move it. He had a small plaque mounted on the wall above it. Not grand, not ceremonial, just a rectangle of brushed steel with a single line. Dorothy Pemberton, kitchen staff, 1993 to 2012. She left this building better than she found it. The first winter after the changeover, the hotel held its staff appreciation dinner. Not a gala, a dinner, in the staff cafeteria with good food and a playlist that someone's 12-year-old had made. 230 people came. Elias sat at a table in the middle, not at the head of anything. He talked to the night porter about the Canucks. He talked to a prep cook about her daughter's hockey team. He ate the same food everyone else ate. At some point in the evening, Bernard Cote found him and set down a butter tart on a small paper plate beside his coffee. "Someone's recipe," Bernard said. "We found it written on a card in the old recipe binder. No name on it, just initials." Elias looked at the tart. He did not need to see the initials. He ate it slowly, all of it, and he did not rush the moment. Here's what I keep coming back to. Colette Langford was not incompetent. She was, by every measurable standard, successful. And still, the moment the pressure was off and the room felt private enough, she became exactly who she was when no one she thought mattered was watching. That's the question I want to leave with you tonight. Not whether someone like her deserves what happened. I think you already know the answer to that. The question is, who are you when the room feels safe enough? When the person across from you is wearing a service uniform and carrying a tray, and you're certain they can't do anything about whatever you're about to do. Because here's what Elias found, and what his mother knew before him. The building has ears. The elevator has memory. The person you dismissed at 8 in the morning is the one who holds the door for your replacement at 9. If this story stayed with you at all, share it with someone who shows up early and leaves late and whose name you might not know yet. Let them know somebody's paying attention. And drop in the comments, if you were Elias in that corridor, knowing what he knew, knowing Monday was 48 hours away, do you say something in the moment, or do you wait until the room is yours? I want to know. I read everyone.